All right, so it says it's being sent to the third party.
There we go. Alrighty, now we should be live. It always, takes me a minute to get into the the technology space. Am I doing this right? Did I click the right buttons? Okay, great, I did. So yes, with that, welcome everyone. I'm Susan. I am a career coach, and I'm here with my awesome fellow career coach, Olga. This
Hi.
is Yeah, this is our series, She Means Business, where once a month, Olga and I get together to discuss topics pertaining to women in the workplace. And today we're very excited to talk about a topic. We've named it the Nice Girl Dilemma, and it's focused on essentially, yeah, how are you in the workplace and how you show up. So, Olga, tell me like a little bit kind of what is yeah, like maybe introduce just like why we chose this topic.
That's a good start. Um, we this is our second conversation in this series, and after the first one, we polled everyone who attended and some of our network, and we asked what would be a good topic. And it was a close tie, by the way, between nice girls and networking. So networking for women. So we're gonna do networking next. But the nice girl was one because Susan and I voted for it as well. It's 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 the closest to our heart, and as we are both recovering nice girls, forever recovering, so we thought we are going to pick up this topic. Is
Yeah,
that a good summary?
yeah, and I think that anyone who knows me knows that I'm obsessed with networking. I really strongly believe in networking, and I always want to talk about networking. But I almost find like it's first really important to know about the nice girl dilemma, being a nice girl in the workplace.
Susan, am I the only one who can't hear you?
All right, it should work now,
Yeah,
does it?
you're back. Technology.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was my mic finally catching up. I swear, y'all, I am a career coach, not a technologist, which is horrible because I live with a technologist. So you would think I would be better off, but
It doesn't rub.
yeah, exactly. It just has not rubbed off on me. Um, so yeah, anyone who knows me knows I'm obsessed with networking, but I find that this is such an important topic, kind of the nice girl and the nice girl dilemma, and how nice girls show up in the workplace and the effects. Because I've had so many clients want to understand, why do I keep getting passed up for promotions? Why did they take someone from outside versus me? And yeah, Olga and I really realized, as she said, recovering nice girls, that still nice girls, just revised nice girls. We thought that this is really important to talk to others about as well. So yeah, we're really excited. Thank you all for joining us, and feel free, any questions that come along or any comments, feel free to leave them in the chat, because I think it is great when we can discuss together.
Up right in the time. We'll be following the chat. We'll take turns with Susan, so hopefully we'll pick everything up. And why don't we jump right into it? I mean, another reason we chose Nice Girls is because, for example, for me, every time, probably 80% of the time I work with female clients, coaching clients, Nice Girls dilemma comes up.
Mm.
And I always used the same book, which is Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. Uh, and I looked at my Amazon history. I think I've bought like 15 copies of it because I always give it to every female client I have or a female friend I have. So I went back to the book and I tried to sort of refresh my knowledge. What struck me, and by the way, this is the second edition because it's name is Nice Girls Still Don't Get the Corner Office. So what this book is about, and by the way, it's by Louis Frankel, and I'll give the full details in the chat afterwards. Uh, she coined the phrase. Lois coined the phrase "nice girls" about 15 years ago, and we're still using it. And what she did, she collected more than 100 different behaviors for that nice girls exhibit in the office, and then she grouped them into a couple of groups. So if you are going to read this book, my recommendation is don't start reading all the behaviors from 1 to 100 something, because what's going to happen to you, it's going to be like with medical encyclopedia. You will believe that you have every single disease there because it's described so well.
This one.
So what she does instead, there's a test or an assessment in front of the book, and you tick the boxes, usual exercise, and then you diagnose yourself where, in which area do you exhibit the nice girl's behavior the most, and the areas are the usual suspects, like the way you play. For example, I love the example she gives. Girls come to work and they play nicely, like a little teddy bear picnic, because everyone needs to share, and we'll all pretend we're drinking tea and all of that. Whereas men play also play, but their play is more competitive, so they're there
Mm,
to win. And under how we play, there's much more examples, but it's just one of them. And then the second group is how we act. Sort of how do we hold ourselves in the meeting? How do we hold the space and so on? Loads of little examples, including bringing food into the office. That's my favorite. I used to do that. I mean, I love baking. I can't eat it all by myself, so I bring it to the office. What signal does it send to my colleagues? Well, she's a nurturing kind of mother figure. She's not a leader, right?
mm,
Sort of the way we think strategically, think of what do we think first, counting money for the company or sort of making progress. So those kinds of things, the way we brand ourselves, what do we want people to know when we leave the room? The way we sound, right? Are we those, pretty girls who are always talking like this and very fast, or, we project confidence and so on. And then the way we look, obviously, we just had a good laugh with Susan. For all of a sudden, I got stressed out. What shirt am I going to wear? Because we're talking about the way we look, but that's important, right?
mm,
And the way we respond, sort of, if you ask to do something, do you go like, yes, of course, or like, let's talk about it. How long is it going to take me? Are you ready for this? And so on. And within those groups, they're all of this names for uh, girls. They're almost like little books, like Little Miss Happy or Little Miss
mm.
Lacking Confidence or Little Miss Perfectionist. So our question to you is, and if you can start typing into the chat, what types of behaviors do you notice around you of nice girls? Sort of, and how do they look like? Oh, someone has already read the book, Olympia. Great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
right.
Fantastic.
Okay. So, Susan, what are your sort of most usual suspects that you're picking up from clients in the nice girls' behaviors?
Oof, I get a lot of people pleasers, perfectionists. I do sometimes get what I've coined the office mom. So it's the one that you feel like comes, the nurturer that takes care of you, um, the one that you go to. It's really it is the person that usually brings baked goods to the office, but also someone that when you're struggling with something, they're going to help you, or they're going to encourage you. I sometimes get those as well.
But what's on the flip side for an office mom?
Oh, well, I I think that if you reframe, so if you think about rather than office mom, that seems like oh, and you feel more cozy, comfortable with if you think of the matriarch. And I know we've talked about this before because matriarch brings up this idea of this really strong woman at the head of a family or at the head of, you know, at the top that is, a strong leader. And how do you see it as well? Like what because I know Olga and we've already talked about this matriarch idea, and yeah, how do you see it when you think of matriarch as well?
Yeah, it did come from one of my clients, and in fact, it's one of the strategies we wanted to share with you. How sometimes we work with clients. I work with narratives, and this lady was a mom of two 4-year-olds, I think, and she nurtured her team, um, and she always worried for them, and the redundancies were coming up, and she knew she can't protect all of them, but she's still worried, and all of this kind of mother nurture love was coming across, but what was going on with her, she was never at ease. She constantly worried. And pretty much she worried about her people and about everyone around her, but she kept forgetting to worry about herself.
Mm.
And she wanted to get promoted. She wanted to get that vice president role, and then she realized that being a mother is not a vice president material. So we worked with a narrative of a mother, and then we developed this narrative of a matriarch. How is it different? How is it helping you? Because the thing is, we're all gonna be nice girls. We are not gonna change our niceness that was brought up by our parents, by the society, and us. It's just impossible.
And I think it's important to mention here too. It's not about just that it's impossible. It's also we're not like the idea is not to change your complete character and personality. It's not to force you to be something you're not. It's just to shift some habits, and shift also in your mind how you see yourself, and make it to where others see this as well.
And also to keep your behaviors, maybe correct them a little bit and add complementary behaviors that are going to help you. It's not about trying to fix yourself not to be something, but to add complementary behaviors. So that's what happened with the matriarch. The complementary behavior was matriarch is still a mother, but assumes a different role, assumes a role of managing everything, being the wise person in the room to whom everyone comes for advice or guidance, rather than her running after and yelling at kids, "Don't forget to put the hat on." So that's the shift, but still keeping the essence of being a mother, being a nice girl. So that's yeah, that comes up a lot. The mother comes up a lot.
Mhm. What are what because you mentioned there's really a lot if especially if you look at the book. Louis Frankel kind of talks a lot about this, but not only we'll get into some other things about the nice girl outside of the book as well. Um, but how does she break it down? Because you said there's really so many different types, but she breaks it down into several groups. Can you kind of walk us through what's like the groups are?
Yeah, so those are the groups that I talked about. So it's how you play, how
Hmm.
you act, how you think, how you brand yourself, how
Hmm.
you look, and how you respond.
And then once you discover kind of like understanding what
What
you
group
are,
you mostly
yeah.
uh,
Okay.
behave in, yeah. That
And
then
then,
you go and choose one, two behaviors, and then you start working on them.
and what are like some of the examples of that?
I'll give you two examples of my examples.
Hmm.
One. One is how you act, for example, and I actually acted. Um, the trigger for this act was different to being a nice girl, I thought, but it led me to being a nice girl. So I got a promotion and I was head of corporate affairs for Western Europe supply chain. And I came in, I knew nothing about supply chain, how it operates, and I thought, oh, amazing, this is going to be such a growth opportunity for me. So I went for the leadership team meeting and I realized no one takes notes and there's no meeting minutes and no one records the actions. And it didn't sit with me in the right way. But then I thought, well, if we only could introduce the discipline of minutes and actions, and I can do this because I know how to do this, but also this will be a good learning for me because when you're writing stuff down, and even if you don't know it, you ask questions and you learn. So I went to my the vice president and I said, look, I can offer this as my development for half a year. I'll set up the discipline of minutes taking for you, but that's only for half a year. I'm not the minute taker in the meetings because I'm a peer in the meetings. Everything was great, and I was taking notes, and everyone loved them, and and then half a year has gone, and I did tell the team that this is my development assignment for half a year, and not to mention I was the only woman on the top team. When
Mm.
the 6 months were over, the seventh month meeting, and all the guys are looking at me and it's like, Olga, aren't you taking the notes? And I look at them and it's like, are you for real? But that's how you establish, that's your act of sort of working as a nice girl, even though it started from a different intention. And it was absolutely difficult for me to get out of it because they started going, well, maybe just for the next meeting, and this is it. The sort of the parity of peership was lost for me there.
Yeah, because then they saw you really in the service role of Olga does this, and you're so good at it. Why don't you keep doing it?
Hmm.
And I think that this is one of the things too, is often as women going into how we act, I think we often step up to the plate a lot and we are the collaborators. So we say, oh, I'll jump in and I can help out with this. Or, oh yeah, I can take this on. I know everyone else is, overwhelmed. Let me help out with this. And by acting in this way, you end up kind of being the yes woman, always saying yes to everything, so that it then starts to be your job to do all of these things. And so when there's even things that come up, they say, oh, well, this woman can do it because she's always saying yes, essentially.
But it's even the simple things, like when we walk into the room as women, because we are, uh, and there's a coffee station, right? And we appears in the meeting, and then someone says, "Shall we have coffees?" Who jumps first to the coffee island and starts helping, doing the coffee? Or who's the one at the table who goes around and grabs a water and then makes sure that she brings the water to everyone?
Yeah.
It's nice. It's being a nice girl, and it's intrinsic in us. And I'm not saying stop doing this, but what I'd like to invite all women who do this is to do it mindfully.
Yeah. And really to think about how you look to others when you do some of these actions.
And does it help me? Does it not? What am I projecting by this? And where can I drop some of this enthusiasm without not, without sacrificing who I am and being a nice person, helping others, and so on. And I know the chat has stopped a little bit, but I'd like to hear your examples. What else are you seeing in the workplace? What's an example of a nice girl behavior? And maybe we'll jump on to Susan. What was your story?
Yeah. And I would be curious to hear other people's ideas as well, kind of what they've seen, because I think there's the nice girl shows up in so many different ways in the office, and then they kind of get branded as such by people. you know, and I think it's important to know often the nice girl is very likable. Everybody likes this person in the office because, you know, they're typically really compassionate, they're a collaborator, they're a yes woman, they are someone that is always doing a really good job and hardworking. But being well liked doesn't mean that you're going to get promoted.
That's another behavior from the book, need to be liked.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing is knowing that, yeah, that's not necessarily what's going to help you get there. When we tend to think working hard and being nice will. I know for me especially, and that was my own issue. This was my nice girl issue, as I always went in thinking, I'm just going to work really hard and they're going to see that. I don't need to toot my own horn. I don't need to brag about my work. I don't even need to, you know, make it a thing where I say, oh, yeah, I actually achieved this week. I'm very excited about it. Or I would often even not even brag about myself somewhat or even just acknowledge my accomplishments. I would even downplay it. Oh, it was a team effort. We all collaborated. We all made it, when really there are some parts of it that, yeah, absolutely, it was a team effort, but there was some parts of it that I did alone and that I can claim as my own work, but I didn't. And I think that this keep your head down, be humble, do you, someone will see your merit and worth and promote you. It is not at all the case. They don't, one, people in power might not realize that you actually want to be promoted. And two, oftentimes they might not even notice all the hard work you're doing. So it's important to actually state what you're doing. But this, I think, yeah, was a very hard like thing for me as a nice girl to kind of shift from this.
Yeah, and it speaks right to like the area of brand. You sort of brand yourself, what you want people to know you by as the doer, and who can resolve things and solve issues, or just someone who collaborates all the time. Those both are good, but what's your intention in the career, right? If you want to go up, you need to create a different brand then. And another one is how sort of what you're talking in your story, it falls into how you act. It's like, oh, I always talk about collaboration rather than, I I sign up for a catch up with the boss of my boss or the PO of my boss, and I talk them through the projects that I've done sort of casually on a regular basis. And it's not bragging, it's just building my brand. And I've been reading through notes, and thank you for sharing, everyone. And Olympia, I wish I could help you with how to get out of this note taking. The only way I could do it is to persistently say, this is not my job. But it took me a couple of months. And someone says, always not being seen as a leader. Well, the answer is you're not seen as a leader because maybe you're not acting as a leader or reminding others that you are a leader. And again, it's not bragging, it's branding. Seprin said, I'm not a threat to you. I won't step on your shoes. That's a nice girl. It's like, oh, don't worry, don't
You're
worry.
trying to be agreeable as well, like be very agreeable, make sure that no one is, no one is uncomfortable by you. It's making yourself small, essentially, to
And
accommodate other people's feelings.
yeah. And Julia says the constant thought of I'm not enough. We're coming to this, Julia. We hope there's going to be a solution for this dilemma. I just wanted to say about playing nicely. That's going back to the example that I gave in the beginning. That's the teddy bear picnic game we're playing that girls were taught to do. And business, whether we like it or not, is dominated by male games and male play. And if you look at what they like to play as children, those are competitive sports. And the most important thing is when men are competing, for example, if they're playing tennis against each other, or if they are playing football against each other, they're rough to each other, especially if they're playing rugby, right? But then they all go out and have a drink together because they're
Mm,
personal. It's a game.
yeah. And it's not at all going into how we do. Like, we're a team collaborating, we're better together. They really are one-on-one competing, even if it's a team sport.
Yeah.
It's pushing themselves and competing against all the people around them. Still, even if they're on a team, I need to outperform even my teammate. I need to perform the best on the team.
Yeah, yeah. Shall we jump into giving some strategies and advice on how we work with all of those nice girls' behaviors in us?
Yeah, before we do, I think I want to mention like a few things about this because I think it's really important to note. I thought in the beginning I would have to really change myself to, I thought, yeah, I would have to change myself in order to make it work. But really, it's, I want to reiterate you, the goal is not to make you feel like you have to be completely someone different when you go into the office. It's just shifting um, maybe a little bit how you show up, a little bit how you act, maybe even just your mindset and being aware of what you're doing and how it impacts how other people see you as well. So the strategies we're going to try to give, it's going forward, are different things. It's take and leave as you see fit, because some things might not work for you, while whereas other things will. It's whatever is best for you in that moment and in this time.
Yeah, that's so true. And remember, it's about complementarity.
Mm.
You add a behavior to the one that you already have. You're not trying to fully cross out the behavior that you have. You're modifying it. Otherwise, it's just too painful, and I think it's almost impossible
Yeah.
to change. Yeah. So, what's shall I start with the first strategy?
Yeah, by all means.
I guess I'm going to address Julia's comment here. Like,
Mhm.
how do nice girls often think I'm not enough? You know, what do we do with this? One of the ways to work with a lot of limiting beliefs is, and I'm not saying it's the way, it's one of the ways, is to work with affirmation phrases. And it's really interesting. I worked with a client recently. She worked for a huge beauty brand, and she ran global sustainability programs. And she was about to go and present at a conference in New York, and she's absolutely smart and everything, but she constantly had this feeling I'm not enough. And we had a conversation with her. She was super ready, absolutely ready, great team, everything was there. But she
Mhm.
constantly talked about being not enough. And then when we talked with her, that in fact everything was ready, and I said, well, how does it feel? And she says, well, I've got it. So we took the phrase, I've got it, and we talked with her, where can we put this phrase that serves her as a reminder? And so what we ended up doing is putting it onto her phone as a screensaver.
Oh, yeah, like the background of it. So she saw it every time she opened her phone.
Exactly. So, and
Hmm.
she saw it, and she would see it. A simple way is to put it on a sticky note onto the mirror,
Hmm. I
anywhere
do
where,
that.
yes. And a phrase, I am enough, a phrase, I've got it. Some other phrases my clients used, I love this one. Actually, it was a male who used it, but it's still affirmations worked for him. His phrase was, I'm riding my way. So he rode bicycles, and he didn't want to be one of those like driven angry men who always overtake everyone, right? So he just said, I'm riding my way. And that was his
Hmm.
mantra. So that's one way, sort of work with affirmations, try
What's
to
yours, Olga? I know you have an affirmation. What is yours?
mine recently, mine was she designed the life she wanted. But the one that mostly works for me is what's the abbreviation JFDI. And if you take the F out, it's just do it.
Hmm. Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
It's because I sit on things. And
Mhm.
by the way, one of the behaviors, nice girls' behaviors is polling everyone's opinion before you make a decision, which actually then you drag on and you don't take ownership. But that's what nice girls do because we want to collaborate and that kind of thing. So for me, when I find myself in this, I'm like, just do it. What's
Yeah.
yours?
It's funny. I'm always, I guess, since I'm always concerned, am I doing it right? Am I doing enough? Am I, is this good enough? Um, and I think I tend to let this kind of fear hold me back. So oftentimes I just say, you're a badass. You can do it. Like, you're a badass.
Yeah,
And then I'm like, yes, I am. Like, I am. Like,
you got this,
yeah.
exactly. But
Um,
but
but yeah,
like different phrases work for different people. So the invitation here is to those who listen, just what works for you, work it.
yeah. And I think too, I used to also think like affirmations are so dumb. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna just say something to
I did
myself.
too. Yeah.
And it's quite funny how I've adapted over time, realizing that, oh, you do to some extent in your mind, the more you say it, you do start to believe it. And so it helps.
Because we create other affirmations, but not sort of we don't construct them. They're in our heads and we repeat them like I'm not
Yeah.
enough. That's another side of an affirmation that sort of programs us. Why don't counter it? And I'm jumping for like into another example of tactics how we can work. Susan, I know you talk about microfeminism. Do you want to share what it is and
Yeah. And before as well, I also saw that Yulia mentioned doing all the extra work, but not the work that is really making you shine. And I think this was actually really important because I know I've done this in the past, and I know that a lot of my women clients have as well, is that often we tend to see something that's not being done, and we see it's important, it's not being done, but we just jump in and kind of not even volunteer ourselves. Sometimes we just end up like just jumping in and doing it. And the bad thing is this doesn't go under your job title. It maybe isn't going into a performance review. And so the problem with this is that all of these extra things you may be doing are not being measured, but they're actually bringing high impact to the company. But you're not being recognized for this. And it was you who spotted it, you who started doing it. And then, yeah, on paper, maybe in performance reviews, it doesn't look like you're doing that much. You're maybe looking average in the job that you have on paper for the performance review, when actually you're giving so much more.
and,
Um,
and I think in this one there's many ways to slice. Well, who do we slice? The dog or whatever. There's many ways to slice
Slice
it.
the dog. I've never even heard this. What is that?
Oh, me neither. There's see foreign language. You don't know the end of the phrase, but anyway, there's many ways to approach it.
Okay.
It's doing those things that uh to skin the dog, is it? Or to skin the bear. There's
That
many.
that sounds more like, yeah, Russian Slavic language. To skin a bear, to skin a dog, you're going to upset a lot of Europeans, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Uh, so doing like sort of picking up stuff that no one sees and you doing this, I think the way sort of the place to start is to understand the what makes you do this. Why you're doing this? Because you're a nice mom girl, because all of this, all of the toys are throughout the room and you constantly go and pick them up because it irritates you. Is it because you're a perfectionist? Is it because you can't stand it? There are many reasons, and then the tactics to work with those reasons are different? Or is it still it's needed to be done and you're mostly upset that no one recognizes you for this? But then the question is, how do you promote yourself, and how do you build your brand? That's why there's
Mhm.
no one answer, right, to this one story. And yeah, and let's just talk about a couple of examples of how we can either diagnose ourselves or work with some of the ways. So we
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that you don't necessarily even have to, like, diagnose yourself according to Louis Frankel and according to the book. It's more so just being aware of your habits, being aware of how you act, think, brand, sound, look, respond, how you play the game when it comes to your professional life, and if there needs to be some tweaks there. I know, for example, one that I like that is general, like that can cover so many different things about being a nice girl, is this trend, and it's called microfeminism. So if you look, and of course my phone's in the floor, I'm going to grab it. um, if you look there's tons of trends, especially on social media, when it comes to microfeminism. I even saved some on TikTok where it's kind of changing the way women are acting, showing up in the professional setting. So one of the examples that I love that I read is that a woman, whenever someone is saying, oh, the CEO needs to get back with us today, then she would respond, oh, let me know what she says. So making the assumption that the CEO is a woman. And so instead of saying, let me know what they say, let me know what she says, or he, as opposed to this. Some other ones were like if there's a group email going out, rather than listing the man's name first, they list all the women that the email is going to and then put them in last. Um, some of it I read microfeminism about the notes is one of the women said that she typically always looks to the man next to her and says, hey, will you take the notes for today's
oh,
session?
yes, there you go, Olympia. There's one for you.
And so I liked that she just looks at them, oh, will you take them today? Like asking. And then, of course, when someone asks you, you may feel a bit obliged. And so that's the hope there. But it's really great when you just go on Instagram, when you go on TikTok, and you just type in microfeminism. You have a whole bunch of great ideas from women telling you what are their acts to kind of counterbalance this typical nice girl view in the office. One of the, I think it's really great to see this kind of little acts of empowerment. So I don't
Amazing.
want to take too much time on it. There's tons on TikTok, so I could sit here and read them to you all day. So, but definitely look up microfeminism. And if you want to talk about it later with me, just send me a message.
And I like the sort of the micro steps, because what you and I talked about is we don't want to encourage everyone just come into the office tomorrow and change everything
Yeah.
and don't be the nice girl. What we're trying to say is find a sandbox to practice. So where can you play around without hurting anyone and yourself and your reputation, and start building the confidence? And microfeminism little steps are great, because you can start practicing, for example, how to say no without saying no. And then start sort of gamify everything, and say, how many times can I today say no without saying no? One. Great. That's 100% more than yesterday. Five, that's amazing. I'm getting the gist of it. And start from small, obviously not when the CEO calls you and asks to write a big report, right?
Yeah.
And another way of practicing I wanted to share with you. One of the most common behaviors is women don't take space. We always go like this, you know, in the celebrity photos, they always show that, you know, the two legs need to be crossed so that they look smaller and so on. And men always go like this, especially in the public transport, as
Oh
we've.
gosh, the man spreading in the public transport always like.
So I'm not advocating for manspreading, obviously, but I recently remembered the practice that I had 10 years ago when I was working on taking space. And I ran and I ran in parks. And what's happening when you run, there are loads of runners and you overtake mums with buggies and dog walkers, everything. And so what I do as a nice girl, I follow the rules. And I'm in the UK, so I run on the left. And then when I see someone, I'm approaching someone who is on my side, but walking on the wrong side, obviously, I make space. I run around them. And then at one point I thought, why don't I try what's gonna happen if I don't move? When I see them and I don't move, because nice girls follow rules, so I'm not breaking one of my nice girls' behaviors. So I follow the rules. I run on the left, and I intentionally run. So my body language shows that I am not moving. And guess what? As if by magic, everyone moves. And then I forgot that I practiced it. And while I was getting ready for this webinar, I went for a walk in the park, and it's the same thing. All of a sudden, I realized I constantly walk around people, and the moment you put intention into your head and into your body, all of a sudden, people start walking around you. So
This I even noticed this morning. I'm in Berlin this week, and I was walking to the coffee shop this morning to, have a nice coffee. And I'm walking on the sidewalk, and I keep dodging so many people. And then I thought, I feel like they're getting close and they're going to crash into me. So I start dodging them. And then I realized, why am I always moving? Why does no one else move? And I was debating, why don't I hold my ground more? Because what's the worst that can happen? They're going to hit me, like they will run into me, but then I, I'm I'm going to be okay. Like I'm not going to be mulled over or anything. So I said, I was even thinking this morning, I should try to hold my ground more, and so that they feel as they should also move. So I think just even changing this in our lives outside of work can help us practice that stance, and that taking up space to bring to the office.
but that's training our body to not be afraid to take the space. And then the next time you know it, you come for a big meeting and you take the space at the table. And another thing is noticing what you do. You come for a meeting, do you take if the table is empty, do you take the seat at the end, or at the corner, or walk in there and take it and take the seat in the middle? What's wrong? Why can some people do it and why can't you? And keep watching yourself. What does it do to you, to your self-esteem, to everything? But I suggest you try small. Don't go into the meeting room and take the front seat if you haven't done it before and you feel uncomfortable. But
Because
try.
then, yeah, maybe in that case you start panicking.
Yeah.
So the goal is really to try to implement this.
To
Yeah,
train your body first, not to be afraid of taking the space. Yes. Right. We are right at the 45 minutes mark, Susan. So I think we can wrap up. Do you have
yeah.
any last sort of parting thought?
Um, I know this is a topic that we could really just keep going on about, but I think the main thing is just awareness is key, and also think about how you show up at work, how your behavior is going to be perceived, and if you would want that. Because I always thought, yeah, well, I'm being a nice girl. I want to be seen as a nice girl, but actually, do I want to be seen as a nice girl, or do I want to be seen as a leader? Well, I want to be seen as a leader. So then you start to shift that mentality, and I think that's the first step. So looking to see what you want to be seen as in your workplace, in your workspace. And then from there, being aware of how you're going about your life and how might you tweak that.
Yeah, and I'll just add, you're not changing or abandoning the nice girl.
Mm.
You are enhancing the behaviors by sort of identifying what doesn't suit you or where you go overboard, and you work with the new ones, and you become more powerful if that's what you want.
Yeah. And it's always back to that at the end of the day. It's really what you want. Nobody's saying you need to go and get a promotion because that's what's expected of you. If you don't want that, by no means go and do that. But this is for people who, you know, want to be seen differently and want to go, because unfortunately, yeah, because it's still male dominated at the top. The nice girl isn't seen as the one that leads. So even though the nice girl can absolutely be super strong and a great leader, just showing those aspects is not enough to get there.
Yeah. Right. So write in comments what you liked, what you didn't like, and let us know which subjects you want us to cover in the next sessions. And there'll be one in a month, plus
Yeah.
minus.
Yeah,
Yes.
every month, Olga and I get together to talk about women in the workplace. So we're really excited to not just cover anything. We really want to cover topics that are important to you and things that you want to hear about and things that can support you. So don't be afraid to reach out also to Olga and I just individually and let us know what you would like to hear more of.
All right. Well, till the next time then.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll see you next month. And yeah, until then, have a wonderful week and month ahead.
Thank you.
See you,
Bye.
everyone.